أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لإيلاف قريش لإيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف صدق الله العلي العظيم. I've just recited chapter 106 of the Holy Quran, Al-Quraysh, the Quraysh, and the translation is: In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, for the protection of the Quraysh, their protection during their journey, and the winter, in the winter and the summer. So let them serve the Lord of this house, who feeds them against hunger and gives them security against fear. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. So Quraysh is the name given to the tribe of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which actually descended from Al-Nazar ibn Kanana, who preceded the Holy Prophet by 13 generations. So, according to some, the word Quraysh is diminutive of Karsh, which is a big animal of the sea, which eats others, but it's not itself eaten. So, I'm going to read the commentary about this chapter by Hazrat Dr. Basharat Ahmed Sahib. So I'll be able to relay to you what he feels the translation and transliteration and the commentary of this chapter is. So at the time of this revealing the chapter, Makkah did not possess cultivable land. It actually lay in a valley surrounded by barren hillsides, a land that was devoid of food, and so its livelihood depended on trade. Syria lay to the north of Makkah and was a cold country, while Yemen, a warm country, lay to the south, which is still the case today. So in the cold season, the Quraysh carried on trade with Yemen and visited Syria for trade when the weather was warm. As they were the guardians of the Kaaba, they were treated with great respect by all Arabia. Looting and killing and fighting raged in all parts of the country, but Makkah always enjoyed complete peace because of people's reverence for the Kaaba. So great was the deference shown to the Meccans that when they left their homes on trading expeditions, no one hindered them, but instead people considered it an honor to serve them, just because they were the protectors of the Kaaba. As this reverential treatment, as you know, is still accorded to any Arab which comes from Makkah or Medina. This chapter speaks of the colossal favor with which Allah Most High blessed the Quraysh. For a people to flourish, two things are necessary. Number one, a stable society and trade and commerce. Further, for this to happen, there are two prerequisites. There must be means for acquiring food, and peace must prevail. Firstly, stable social intercourse cannot exist amongst a people, that is, disparate individuals cannot meet and live together unless there is peace and provision for feeding themselves. If there's no peace in a city, then people will flee from there, as is very evident these days. Similarly, if there is peace but no provisions for a regular supply of food, then people will also leave their homes in search of jobs and wages. In fact, on many occasions, people leave the country itself. People cannot prosper in trade unless it's done on a regular basis and continuous basis. Whether in winter or summer, nothing must hinder the free flow of trade, and merchants will derive profit only when their goods are sold regularly. For example, a person sells his goods in a foreign country and then buys merchandise from there to be sold in his own country. If the wheels of trade spin like this, then profit will accrue. However, If there are problems and the goods remain unsold, then loss will result. Another necessity for profitable trade is that travel and transportation should be safe. Now let's look at the plight of the Quraysh at the time. They were living in a land that produced nothing, in which there was no peace. Furthermore, there was no safety on the roads. Under these conditions, it was impossible to have social and commercial progress. Consider now the blessings of Allah. Because of the existence of Kaaba in Makkah, the inhabitants enjoyed complete peace. Looting and fighting flared in every area around, but they lived in happiness and peace and could carry on a prosperous trade in all seasons without interruption and with complete safety in their journeys. All these favors are recalled in these two verses. In Le'ilafe Quraysh, for the protection of the Quraysh, and the verse Ilafehim Rehlata Shitai was Saf, their protection during their journey in the winter and the summer, refers to their unbroken flow of trade in every season. Allah Most High reminds the Quraysh of His great favor to them, telling them that in order for them to meet and live together as a civilized society and to enjoy an uninterrupted cycle of trade in summer and winter, He has made such provision for their sustenance that they no longer had to suffer hunger nor want. Secondly, He has protected them from all fears and anxieties. The specter of hunger disappeared because new friends and business contacts were made during the Hajj season. Trade flourished, and Allah had so arranged matters that He placed two countries in opposite direction to them so that they could trade during both summer and winter. In this way, the wheel of trade and profit never ceased turning, and their civilization continued to make rapid progress. As regards peace, whilst the whole of Arabia was in turmoil and destruction, they lived in peace in Makkah. They could go on trading expeditions without fear or anxiety and could travel with their merchandise without let or hindrance. How stupendous was the favor of that merciful Lord to the Quraysh in providing for their sustenance and affording them freedom from fear when they lived in such a desolate place and such a dangerous country. So if it is the nature of man to love his benefactor, then there was no reason for the Quraysh not to cherish love in their hearts for that Lord who was so good to them. Again, if anyone showers such blessings and favors on a nation in making provision for them to live together in a peaceful community, and also makes such arrangements for them to procure their food and that they could travel on trading journeys without interruption and without fear, then it is inevitable that the hearts of that people would be so filled with love for this benefactor, and they would consider it a badge of honor to worship him, and would make more strenuous efforts to improve their relationship with him so that his favors to them might be multiplied. Furthermore, in seeking to draw closer to him, they should try to inquire into the reasons for the beneficence of that Lord. That is the reason for the command in this chapter, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. So let them worship the Lord of that house. In other words, all these favors came about as a result of one thing, the guardianship of Allah's house, the Kaaba, which was in their city and of which they took care. They were protective keepers of the Kaaba and derived benefit from that. It was Allah's will that peace and security should reign forever in the Kaaba, so whichever people were its custodians, they derived benefit from it, and the reward for their services and for their upkeep of the Kaaba was that they became the inheritors of honor and respect. So I just want to add something, and if you look at this day and age, since oil was struck in Saudi Arabia, you look at the wealth that they've been given. At the time of the Prophet, they still had, Allah had made provisions for them to be able to trade freely between north and south and benefit. And today, if you see, Saudi Arabia is one of the richest countries in the world, and Allah is bestowing His favors as He's promised for time immemorial. But it's up to them, whoever are the custodians, that if they live up to the standard that Allah has asked them to do so. So I come back to Dr. Bisharat now. So in short, because of their custodianship of the house of Allah, He provided this barren valley with abundant food and blessed its people with peace and tranquility in the midst of fear and hunger and danger. They are told to consider how well Allah looked after His house, and in the face of this evidence, they should therefore devote themselves to the service of the Lord of that house with such devotion that they would neither worship nor seek any other God. Instead, He and He alone should dwell in their hearts. So when their hearts become houses of Allah, then these hearts will be cared for just as the Kaaba, the house of Allah, is cherished. And they will receive mental and spiritual benefits. On the one hand, they will obtain spiritual nourishment, that is mystical knowledge in abundance, and on the other hand, they will be left safe from the attacks of Satan. If they have to travel to tropical or temperate countries in search of knowledge, even there they will be preserved from the machinations of Satan, and so their faith and piety will remain intact. Even more, their intellectual and spiritual knowledge will increase, and they will become the recipients of spiritual favor. So the chapter before this chapter is Surah Fil, or the elephant, 105, and in that chapter it was stated that any attempt to destroy the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions was really an attempt to demolish the house of Allah, the Kaaba, for Allah dwells in the hearts of the righteous. Allah dwells in the hearts of the righteous. So those who are engaged in plans to destroy the believers will meet the same fate as that of the companions of the elephant, that is destruction and abasement. On the other hand, there is a promise in this chapter that those who build houses of Allah in their hearts will, like the Quraysh, be given abundance of food and will be made free from fear. And this promise was fulfilled to the letter in the case of the Quraysh, who were merely guardians of the physical house of Allah. How much more will be the blessings if we became custodians of the spiritual house of Allah in our hearts? This the Holy Prophet and his companions did, and as a result they were endowed with physical and spiritual sustenance, and also peace and serenity to a degree unparalleled in the history of mankind, for they were the true worshippers of Rabba Hazal Bayt, the Lord of this house, the Kaaba. If today we Muslims follow their example and make our hearts the abode of Allah, we shall lack neither physical food nor spiritual sustenance, and we shall fear no Satan, whether manifest or hidden. Further, to whatever continent we may go in search of knowledge, our hearts will never be polluted by satanic insinuations, and both our knowledge and faith will increase, inshallah. Every day we stand facing the Kaaba, as we will do after this khutbah, in prayer, and as we worship the Lord of that house, but we do not realize that there is a deeper significance in prayer, in that it is the most effective means of bringing the Lord of that house into our hearts, and also making our hearts houses of Allah like the Kaaba. If we should read the experiences of the saints of Islam and learn how they were lost in love with the Lord of that house with such purity and devotion, spiritual ecstasy will spontaneously surge in our hearts. Once, the great saint Rabia Basri, may Allah's mercy be on her. So Rabia Basri set out to perform the pilgrimage. When she was just a mile away from the Kaaba, she saw in a vision that the Kaaba had come to her and addressed her thus. So the Kaaba is addressing in a vision to Hazrat Rabia Basri, "You have come to me from a long distance, so I have come here to welcome you." Hazrat Rabia Basri replied, "I haven't come for your sake, I have come because of your Lord." So that was the reverence of Allah who lived in their hearts, and what a glorious manifestation of deep spiritual knowledge and love for the oneness of Allah. When we read anecdotes like this, our hearts are so filled with rapture that we too yearn and pray to Allah that He should grant us the same spiritual blessing. Jazakallah khair. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil Azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim. Innahu ta'ala jawadun kareemun malikum barraufur rahim.